We don't owe you anything. Victor Langford said it with a smile that made my stomach turn. He sat across from me in the glass-walled conference room, his fingers drumming against a manila folder like he was bored by this entire conversation. I'd worked at Hawthorne and Wells Consulting for 4 years. Senior project strategist. Clean record. Solid performance reviews. I'd closed deals, managed teams, and worked weekends without complaint. And now Victor was firing me. Your position has been eliminated, he continued, sliding a thin packet across the table. We've prepared a severance package that reflects your contributions to the company. I opened the folder with shaking hands. My eyes scanned the pages. Legal language, release forms, confidentiality agreements. And then I saw the number at the bottom. $0. This says my severance is 0, I said slowly, hoping I'd misread it. Victor shrugged. You were terminated during your probationary renewal period. Company policy states that employees in renewal status aren't entitled to severance. I've been here 4 years. What probationary period? He smiled again. That same cold, satisfied smile. We restructured your contract 8 months ago. Remember? I remembered. 8 months earlier, Victor had called me into his office with what he called exciting news. The company was reorganizing and my role would be elevated to align with new federal contract requirements. He'd asked me to sign updated paperwork. I trusted him. I'd signed without reading every line because I was in the middle of 3 active projects and he'd assured me it was just a formality. Now I understood. That restructuring had reset my employment status. It had given them a loophole to fire me without paying a cent. But that wasn't even the worst part. The real reason I was sitting in this conference room had nothing to do with budget cuts or restructuring. It had everything to do with what happened 3 weeks ago. Victor had asked me to approve falsified data on a government contract. Numbers that didn't match our actual deliverables. Projections that were outright lies. I'd refused. And now I was being punished for it. Try to fight this, Victor said quietly as I stared at the severance packet. You'll lose. I walked out of that conference room in a daze. My legs felt heavy. My chest was tight. 4 years of my life and they were tossing me out like garbage with nothing to show for it. I packed my desk in silence while my former coworkers pretended not to notice. No one made eye contact. No one asked what happened. They all knew. In a company like Hawthorne and Wells, bad news traveled fast. I was carrying my box of belongings toward the elevator when someone bumped into me from behind. Sorry, a voice muttered. I turned to see Dorian Pike, a junior analyst from the data team. He was young, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. It's fine, I said. He glanced around quickly, then leaned closer. Check your bag when you get home. Before I could respond, he walked away. I looked down at my cardboard box. There, tucked between my coffee mug and a framed photo, was a small USB drive I definitely hadn't packed. I called attorney Rowan Calder that same evening. Rowan had represented a friend of mine 2 years earlier in a discrimination case. My friend had warned me. He's quiet but he's vicious. The kind of lawyer who smiles while he destroys you. I needed vicious right now. Rowan's office was in a modest building downtown. No fancy lobby, no expensive art on the walls. Just a simple reception area and a secretary who looked like she'd seen 1,000 workplace horror stories. Ms. Hawk. Rowan appeared in the doorway, mid-50s, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked more like a high school teacher than a courtroom predator. I followed him into his office and handed him the severance packet. He flipped through it silently, his expression neutral. Then he reached the final page. And he started laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full, genuine laugh that made him take off his glasses and wipe his eyes. 0, he said, still grinning. They offered you $0 after 4 years of employment. Is that funny? Ms. Hawk, it's hilarious. Because they just made the stupidest mistake of their lives. Rowan called Hawthorne and Wells the next morning. I sat in his office, listening to him speak in that calm, measured tone that somehow sounded more threatening than yelling ever could. This is attorney Rowan Calder representing Marceline Hawk. I'm calling regarding her recent termination and the severance offer your company provided. There was a pause while someone on the other end responded. $0 is unacceptable, Rowan continued. We're requesting formal negotiation to reach a fair settlement that reflects Ms. Hawk's contributions and the circumstances of her departure. Another pause. Longer this time. Rowan's expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly. I see. And if we proceed with litigation? Whatever the response was, it made Rowan smile. Understood. We'll be in touch. He hung up and looked at me. Victor Langford himself got on the line. He says they'll bury you in litigation if you try to fight this. He called your claims baseless, and your lawyer, meaning me, incompetent. My heart sank. So we can't win? I didn't say that. Rowan leaned back in his chair. I said he threatened us. There's a difference. Victor just told me he's scared. How do you know? Because confident people don't threaten. They negotiate. He tapped his desk. Now tell me about this USB drive. We spent the next hour trying to open the files Dorian had given me. Every document on the drive appeared corrupted. Error messages popped up whenever we tried to access them. File names were visible, but the contents were locked behind some kind of digital wall. This is intentional, Rowan said, squinting at his computer screen. Someone encrypted these files. The question is whether they left us a way to decrypt them. He made a call to a tech specialist he knew. 20 minutes later, a woman named Kira showed up with a laptop covered in stickers and an expression that suggested she could hack into anything. She worked in silence for nearly an hour, typing commands I didn't understand. Then she stopped. Got it, she said. Whoever encrypted this used a pretty basic cipher. They wanted it to look corrupted but be recoverable if someone knew what they were doing. The first file opened on Rowan's screen. It was a spreadsheet. The title at the top made my blood run cold. Severance Elimination Protocol. The spreadsheet was a masterpiece of cruelty. It listed employee names, termination dates, contract renewal periods and severance amounts. But most of the severance amounts had been manually changed to 0. Rowan scrolled through slowly, his expression darkening with every row. This is systematic, he said. Look at the pattern. Employees are being fired right before major contract renewals, during their probationary restructuring periods. And in every case their severance is eliminated. Why would they do that? Money. He pointed to a column on the far right labeled Quarterly Bonus Adjustment. Next to Victor Langford's name were numbers that made me dizzy. Tens of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands over multiple quarters. Every time Victor eliminates someone's severance, Rowan explained, he reduces the company's payout obligations. That saving gets calculated into his performance bonus. So he's been firing people to make himself richer? Exactly. Rowan scrolled down further and stopped. And look at this. My name. Highlighted in yellow. With a termination date listed 4 months before I was actually fired. He planned this, I whispered. He planned all of it. Rowan leaned back in his chair, staring at the spreadsheet like it was a puzzle he was solving in real time. Tell me again why Victor fired you, he said. The real reason. I took a deep breath. 3 weeks ago he asked me to approve data for a government contract. The numbers were wrong. Projections didn't match our actual performance. Client deliverables we hadn't completed yet were listed as finished. And you refused to approve it? I told him I couldn't sign off on false information. He said it was just optimistic forecasting. I said it was fraud. Rowan's eyes lit up. And that conversation happened 3 weeks before your termination? Yes. He started typing notes rapidly. Ms. Hawk, do you know what a whistleblower is? Someone who reports illegal activity? Exactly. And federal law protects whistleblowers from retaliation. If an employee refuses to participate in fraud and is then fired, that's not just wrongful termination. That's a federal violation. My heart started racing. Does Victor know that? Rowan smiled. I don't think he does. And that's going to cost him everything. Kira opened the second encrypted file. It was an email chain. Long, detailed, and absolutely damning. The first email was from Victor to the company's financial officer, dated 2 months before my termination. Subject: Q4 performance strategy. We need to reduce overhead before the Redfield contract renews. Identify high-salary employees in probationary cycles. Erase Hawk before she opens her mouth. Erase. Like I was a problem to be solved instead of a person. Rowan read the email 3 times then looked at me. There's an attachment. What kind of attachment? Let's find out. The attachment was a PDF containing the exact falsified data Victor had asked me to approve. Client milestones marked as complete when they weren't. Revenue projections inflated by 40%. Deliverable timelines shortened to make the company look more efficient than it actually was. And at the bottom, a note in red text. Approval required from M. Hawk before submission to federal oversight. Victor had wanted my signature on this document. He'd wanted me to be complicit. And when I refused, he'd decided to eliminate me instead. Rowan leaned back in his chair, his expression calm but his eyes blazing. This alone, he said quietly, is worth 7 figures. 7 figures? You mean? I mean this single email and attachment are enough to file a federal whistleblower retaliation claim. The penalties for that kind of violation start in the hundreds of thousands and go up from there. And that's before we even talk about wrongful termination, emotional distress, or punitive damages. He looked at me seriously. Ms. Hawk, you're not just getting severance. You're about to get justice. Rowan drafted a demand letter that same afternoon. It was 8 pages long and read like a legal missile. He outlined every violation, every piece of evidence, every federal statute Victor had broken. Then he listed his demands. Immediate reinstatement to my former position, full severance package with interest compensation for retaliation under whistleblower protections, damages for emotional distress and reputational harm. The total amount was staggering. More money than I'd made in 2 years. They'll never agree to this, I said. They don't have to agree, Rowan replied. They just have to take it seriously. And trust me, they will. He sent the letter via certified mail and email to Hawthorne and Wells' legal department, copying Victor and the company's board of directors. Then we waited. The response came within 48 hours. One sentence: your demands are delusional. We will not negotiate. Rowan read it aloud, then smiled. Perfect. Over the next week, cracks started appearing in Hawthorne and Wells' confident facade. Dorian reached out through an encrypted message app. He told me Victor had been holding emergency meetings with HR and legal. Employees were being told not to speak to me under any circumstances. People were nervous. Something's happening, Dorian wrote. He's scared. Then my phone rang. I looked at the caller ID, Hawthorne and Wells HR department. I started to answer, but Rowan grabbed the phone out of my hand. Do not talk to them, he said firmly. Not a word. They're trying to bypass me and get you to say something they can use against you. Let them leave a voicemail. They did. The HR director's voice was syrupy sweet. Marceline, we'd love to chat informally about your departure. Nothing official, just a conversation between former colleagues. Please call me back. Rowan deleted it immediately. They're panicking, he said. Which means we're winning. Hawthorne and Wells struck back 3 days later. A letter arrived from their legal team threatening to countersue me for breach of confidentiality and theft of proprietary information. They claimed I'd stolen company documents when I left. They demanded I return all materials immediately or face legal action. I felt sick reading it. The USB drive. They know about the USB drive. They don't know anything, Rowan said calmly. They're phishing. This is a classic intimidation tactic. They threaten to sue you, hoping you'll panic and back down. But what if they actually sue me? Rowan's smile was downright predatory. Then they'll have to admit those documents exist in court. Under oath. In front of a judge. And once they do that, everything on that USB becomes official evidence. He started typing a response. They just made my job so much easier. That night, Kira called with news about the 3rd encrypted file. You're going to want to see this, she said. I drove to Rowan's office immediately. Kira had her laptop open, displaying another spreadsheet, this one labeled Payroll Adjustments Discretionary. It showed names of terminated employees and their original severance amounts. But next to each amount was a second column, Retained Balance. Victor had been keeping the money. When an employee was fired without severance, the funds that should have been paid out were being reclassified as budget savings. But instead of going back to the company, those savings were being funneled directly into Victor's executive compensation package. Rowan stared at the screen in silence for a long moment. This isn't just civil, he said finally. This is criminal. Victor's been embezzling. What do? We go nuclear. Rowan didn't contact Hawthorne and Wells' legal department this time. He didn't contact HR. He didn't contact Victor. He went straight to the board of directors' external auditor. Why the auditor? I asked. Because HR and legal report to the CEO and the CEO is Victor's friend. But the auditor? They report to the board. And boards hate surprises, especially expensive criminal surprises. He sent a detailed summary of Victor's embezzlement scheme, complete with documentation from the USB drive. He marked it urgent and flagged it as a potential securities violation. Then we waited. The board responded within an hour. I was making dinner when someone knocked on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and my blood turned to ice. Victor Langford stood in my hallway. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. His tie was loose. He looked sweaty and frantic. Marceline opened the door. We need to talk. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering. How did he know where I lived? Why was he here? He knocked again harder. I know you're in there. Just give me 5 minutes. Please. I grabbed my phone to call 911, and that's when I saw a second figure appear at the end of the hallway. Rowan Calder stepped into view, his expression calm but his eyes locked on Victor like a predator watching prey. Step away from her door, Rowan said quietly. Victor spun around, startled. What are you doing here? Ms. Hawk called me when she saw you on her security camera, Rowan lied smoothly. Now I'll ask you again. Step away from her door. I just want to talk to her. You're harassing my client at her home after business hours. If you don't leave immediately, I'll file for a restraining order and add harassment to our lawsuit. Your choice. Victor's face flushed red. You think you can destroy me? I've been with this company for 15 years. I have allies. I have resources. You're nobody. Rowan smiled, that terrible calm smile I was learning to recognize. I don't think I can destroy you, Mr. Langford. I know I can. Victor took a step toward him. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I'm dealing with a man who embezzled company funds, falsified government contract data, and committed federal whistleblower retaliation. The board knows everything now. It's over. Victor's confidence cracked. You're bluffing. Check your email. Victor's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands. His face went from red to white in seconds. No, he whispered. The board has requested your presence at an emergency review tomorrow morning, Rowan said. 9 a.m. sharp. Ms. Hawk and I will be attending as well. This is insane. Those emails are fake. Someone's framing me. We have metadata, Mr. Langford. Timestamps. Server logs. Everything traces back to your computer and your account. The auditor has already verified it. Victor looked at me through the peephole, his expression desperate. Marceline, please. You know me. I was just trying to help the company succeed. The numbers weren't really fraud, just projections. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. Rowan stepped between Victor and my door. Leave now or I call the police. Victor left. The boardroom at Hawthorne and Wells was cold and silent. I sat next to Rowan at a long conference table. Across from us were 5 board members, the company's external auditor and their head legal counsel. Victor sat at the far end alone. No lawyer. No allies. Just him and his lies. The board chair, an older woman named Diane Rothschild, opened a folder in front of her. Mr. Langford, we've reviewed serious allegations regarding your conduct. Before we proceed, do you have any statement you'd like to make? Victor cleared his throat. These allegations are completely false. The emails in question are fabricated. My record speaks for itself. Diane held up a hand. The emails originated from your company account, sent through our secure server. Are you claiming someone hacked your credentials? I'm saying someone manipulated the files. Rowan opened his laptop. Then let's discuss metadata. Rowan displayed the email chain on the screen at the front of the room. But he didn't show the content first. He showed the technical details. The digital fingerprints that proved exactly when, where, and how each email was created. This email, Rowan said, pointing to Victor's Erase Hawk message, was composed on September 14th at 9:47 a.m. The IP address traces to Mr. Langford's office computer. The timestamp is authenticated by your company's email server, which keeps permanent logs. Victor's lawyer, who'd finally arrived late, tried to interject. Email metadata can be falsified. Not on enterprise servers with federal compliance requirements, Rowan interrupted smoothly. Your company works on government contracts. Your email system is required by law to maintain tamper-proof records. Those records confirm every email we've submitted as evidence. He clicked to the next slide. And here's the thread Mr. Langford never deleted. The one he assumed was buried in his archive folder. The email thread appeared on screen, complete with every damning message. Make Hawk disappear. No severance, no noise. Can we restructure her contract to eliminate payout obligations? She's a liability. She won't approve the Redfield data. Remove her before she reports anything. The boardroom erupted. Board members started talking over each other. Legal counsel went pale. The auditor started taking frantic notes. Diane Rothschild raised her hand for silence. Mr. Langford, you're terminated effective immediately. For cause. The company will not provide legal representation for any criminal charges that may result from this investigation. Victor stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You can't. We can and we have, Diane said coldly. Security will escort you from the building. You have 1 hour to clear your personal belongings under supervision. Victor looked around the room desperately, searching for anyone who would defend him. No one met his eyes. Ms. Hawk, Diane said. Could you step outside with us for a moment? We'd like to speak with you privately. I followed 3 board members into a smaller conference room. Diane sat across from me, her expression serious but not unkind. Ms. Hawk, on behalf of Hawthorne and Wells, I want to apologize. What Victor did was unconscionable. You were wronged and we failed to catch it. Thank you, I said quietly. We'd like to make this right. We're prepared to offer you a settlement package that includes full severance based on your original contract, a 6-figure financial settlement, and a 1-year consulting contract if you're interested in returning in an advisory capacity. I glanced at Rowan, who sat beside me taking notes. That's generous, I said carefully. It's what you deserve. Diane slid a folder across the table. These are the terms. Take your time reviewing them. Rowan opened the folder and scanned it quickly. Then he looked at Diane. We're not done. Excuse me. Diane's eyebrows rose. Your offer addresses the wrongful termination, Rowan said calmly. But it doesn't address the whistleblower retaliation, the embezzlement scheme Ms. Hawk helped uncover, or the emotional distress caused by Mr. Langford's harassment. We've offered a substantial settlement, which we appreciate, but under federal whistleblower protection statutes, Ms. Hawk is entitled to additional compensation. She refused to participate in contract fraud, was retaliated against, and provided evidence of criminal conduct. That carries specific penalties. Diane looked at her legal counsel, who nodded reluctantly. What are you asking for? Diane said. Rowan handed her a single sheet of paper. The number at the bottom made her flinch. This is more than double our original offer. This is what the law requires, Rowan said. We can litigate it if you prefer. But I suspect your board would rather settle this quietly before federal investigators start asking questions about how long this scheme was operating. Diane was silent for a long moment. Then she looked at her legal counsel again. Draw up the amended agreement, she said. The news broke 2 weeks later. Hawthorne and Wells executive terminated for embezzlement and contract fraud. Federal investigation launched into consulting firms' government contracts. Former employee's whistleblower complaint exposes years of financial misconduct. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters wanting comments, former coworkers reaching out to apologize for their silence, even job offers from competitors who'd heard about my role in exposing the fraud. I ignored most of them. But I did answer when Dorian Pike called. I heard you got your settlement, he said. I'm glad. Thank you for the USB drive, I said. I never got to properly thank you. You stood up when no one else would. I just made sure you had the evidence to back it up. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment looking at the settlement check on my kitchen table. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to take time off, start over somewhere new, build something better. Victor was under federal investigation. His reputation was destroyed. His career was over. Me. I was free. 3 months later, I walked out of Rowan's office for the final time. All the paperwork was signed. The settlement was complete. Hawthorne and Wells had paid every cent they owed me, and I'd officially declined their consulting contract offer. I had no interest in going back. I stood on the sidewalk outside, breathing in the cool autumn air, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Marceline Hawk? A professional voice asked. Yes. My name is Caroline Chin. I'm the VP of Operations at Meridian Consulting Group. We've been following your case with great interest. Your integrity and courage are exactly what we look for in senior leadership. We'd like to offer you a position as Director of Strategic Compliance. Significant pay increase, full benefits, and a signing bonus. Would you be interested in discussing it? I looked up at the sky, remembering Victor's smirk when he told me I'd lose if I fought back. I'd be very interested, I said. As I walked to my car, I thought about everything that had happened. The fear. The uncertainty. The moment I almost gave up. And I whispered to myself, next time someone calls me replaceable, I'll remember how wrong they were.